Hello there, I hope you are doing very well. So if you've been here for a while, you know that I love vintage, thrifted, and antique pieces. They're what fill my home, my wardrobe, and honestly, my life. But there is another way that I use them that I don't really talk about much in my personal rituals and spiritual practice. Now, I have never been a perfectly consistent witch. My practice ebbs and flows, but over the years, I've realized that I don't need a perfectly stocked metaphysical shop or a drawer full of trendy tools to make it meaningful. What works best for me are the objects that I already love and live with. The old, well-made and storied pieces that just fit naturally into my home. So today I thought I would share some practical ways that you can use vintage, thrifted, and antique items in your own rituals. Whether you are deeply committed to your craft, just starting out, or just simply curious about adding a little bit more intention to the things that you already own. But before we jump in, I would love to hear from you. Do you use vintage or secondhand pieces in your own rituals or your home? Tell me about it in the comments because I am always fascinated about how people repurpose everyday objects in creative ways. And if you enjoy videos about vintage living and intentional daily life, make sure you're subscribed. It really helps my channel grow and it lets me know that you would like to see more videos like that. All right, let's start with why vintage and thrifted pieces work so well with this kind of practice. For me, secondhand and vintage pieces feel alive with history. They've existed through decades of ordinary life, family dinners, morning routines, special occasions, and I think that makes them ideal for hearth or green witchcraft, which is really rooted in everyday rituals and domestic magic. When I use a vintage candlestick, I'm not just lighting a flame. I'm connecting with that sense of continuity, of simple daily reverence. These objects carry presence. They remind me that magic isn't something separate from ordinary life. It is ordinary life, made intentional. And on a practical level, older items were often made with natural materials, so copper, wood, cotton, linen, which just hold energy differently than plastic or resin. They age beautifully and they're much more sustainable. So rather than shopping for something marketed as a ritual tool, I look for objects that have already lived a life, but still have a purpose to give. It's less about aesthetics and more about relationship. You can find incredible pieces almost anywhere. Thrift stores, flea markets, antique shops, or even your own attic. Estate sales and yard sales are wonderful too if you enjoy exploring history in a little bit more of a personal way. If you're on a budget, focus on versatility. A small dish can serve as an offering bowl one day, but hold jewelry or herbs the next. I like collecting items that naturally fit into my home, things that don't scream witchcraft, but quietly support it. And don't forget about those sentimental pieces. A teacup from a relative, a spoon that has been in the family for years. even a chipped bowl that you can't part with. These items, they hold your energy. In hearth magic, these connections are far more potent than anything that you could buy new. Brass candlesticks are pretty easy to find and perfect for simple rituals. A cut glass tray makes a really lovely base for offerings or crystals. I use glass cruettes as small, easy to pour vessels for moon water or oils. A hand mirror or vintage compact can become a tool for self-reflection, literally and symbolically, especially during journaling or intention setting work. And if you love tea, vintage teacups can double as vessels for offerings, divination, or quiet moments of reflection. Small glass jars and spice containers are perfect for storing herbs or salt blends. Sewing notions like old buttons, lace, and ribbons are especially useful for making charm bags or protective sachets. Old keys are powerful symbols for unlocking opportunities or safeguarding boundaries. Coins and vintage jewelry are wonderful for prosperity or confidence work. They already carry the energy of exchange, touch, and adornment. As a hearth and green witch, the kitchen is often my sacred space. I use enamel and cast iron daily, not just for cooking, but as tools of intention. Stirring soup clockwise to bring comfort, cleaning my counters with a mindful herbal rinse, and baking with gratitude. These are all small acts of spell work. Vintage cookbooks are another favorite. They're full of seasonal wisdom, dishes that follow the rhythm of the year. I'll often adapt an old recipe as a kind of quiet ritual, especially during solstices or seasonal transitions. Whenever I bring home a secondhand piece, I start with a physical and intentional clean. Gentle soap, warm water, maybe a polish if needed. That's often enough to clear old energy. Since I don't use smoke in my practice, I rely on other methods: sound, sunlight, moonlight, or natural elements. Ringing a bell or playing music around the object is simple yet effective. You can also set it in the sunlight for renewal, moonlight for calm, or place it near herbs or salt overnight to ground the energy. The key is intention. You're not banishing or sterilizing. You're resetting the item's energy to harmonize with yours. A quick note on safety. Some vintage ceramics, glazes, and crystal glassware may contain lead or other materials that are not food safe. I never drink from them, but they can be perfect for candles, flowers, or herbs. Make sure to check your metal items that they are sturdy and rust-free before using them with water or oils. And sometimes you might find something that just feels off, energetically heavy, or maybe unsettling. Trust that feeling. You can thank it for showing up and pass it along. Not every beautiful object belongs in your space, and that's okay. A few of my favorite secondhand tools are a brass candlestick I found at a flea market for €2. That's been a part of countless rituals. A glass bottle that I use for moon water, and an old cross-stitched linen as my altar cloth. None of these were actually bought with magic in mind, but over time they've become deeply woven into my practice. They remind me that the most meaningful tools are often the ones that already fit seamlessly into your life. The beauty of secondhand magic is that it connects you to both history and home. These pieces already have a story, and when you use them with intention, they become part of yours. There's no right way to practice, of course, no perfect setup or checklist of tools. Whether your magic happens at your kitchen table or your altar, It's really about noticing the sacred in the ordinary. So next time you're thrifting or sorting through old family things, pause for a moment. You might find that something familiar, a spoon, a jar, a scrap of fabric, has been waiting to hold magic all along. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, may you find a little magic in the ordinary.